all hear me? Still don't have the sound system to get it going, but we all project very well. So, the first unity principle tells us that there is only one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God the Omnipotent. We here at Unity honor the many names of and the many paths to God. Will you please stand for our invocation? We are now in the presence of pure being and immersed in the Holy Spirit of light, love, and wisdom. We acknowledge thy presence and thy power, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom, now erase our mortal limitations, and from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation our world according to thy perfect law. And our Lord's Prayer, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Please turn to hymn number 306. Come ye thankful people, 306. Swami Sankarananda. We have a video because of COVID in a while, so we are so fortunate that he is able to be with us today. So, Swami, we are so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning. So, Om Namah Shivaya. So we're Namaste. So beautiful. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Good morning. So 2 years. I was actually here briefly 1 year ago. I flew in and flew out and didn't get to visit with you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. What a world these past 2 years, eh? It's really something, isn't it? It's really something. The discussion this morning, we said, is at the precipice. And being here now, so we'll discuss around this a little bit. But does it seem like we're at the edge of something? Does it? You know, one thing the world is doing right now, certainly it's teaching us that nothing stays the same, isn't it? Who would have predicted? I suppose someone would put their hand up and say, I did. That ego is somewhere. But who would have predicted the sea changes over the last 10 years? Drama, so much drama. You know, the world is drama in the world. And this is one of the great questions. Why is there evil in the world? And he answered. He said there is good and there is evil so that you may choose. It's a beautiful answer, isn't it? So there's more to this world than meets the eye. And the big challenge that we have is that the underlying reality of this world is not easily accessible and not so obvious on the surface. And yet it exists within us. It exists within us. And of course the challenge is that when we get worked up about the world, when we get all riled up, and anxiety is on the rise, it's definitely on the rise, yes? Do you feel it? Anxiety, fear, anger, it seems like a time of this. In fact, in Eastern tradition, this time is called Kali Yuga. Who's heard of it? Kali Yuga. The time of quarrels. And definitely it's this, isn't it? Hmm. Everyone wanting to make a point. And yet, you know what hasn't changed? Who wants to say? You know what hasn't changed? I haven't changed. In other words, I was talking with one of the Christians here this morning. She showed me a photograph on the wall, and I was enjoying looking at the photos, yes, of all of the practices and the gatherings and all of that over the years. I noted that the center is almost 100 years old now. 1927, I think, was the opening of the center. Was anyone here? I suppose I was in some other form. 1927, so almost 100 years. And she said, there's a photograph I'd like you to see. And she went over and she showed me a photograph of a little girl on the steps. Yes? Very young, maybe 6 or 7 years old. And she said, that's me. And I said, really? What is the same? Huh? What is the same and what has changed? If you look at your experience, the I is the same. Is it correct? The I is the same. Yeah? If you consider back in childhood, if you reflect on your life, you see that I is the same. Yes? What's happening to me is always different, right? But I is the same. Yes? Got it? Dream state. When you dream, who is the dream happening to? The dream state. Yes, it's a mental dream state, but who is it happening to? Is it happening to I? But you know, everything here is changing. We talked for a moment and we said, does that girl in the photograph, is that really the same girl, the same person as you are now? And the answer is no. And by the way, if you study it, you will see that every single cell changed. Even the brain cells changed. The names that we were called changed, except the experience of I stayed the same. The other thing that hasn't changed is where is God through all this time? Where is God through all this time? Has God changed? So God's here and I am the same, but everything here is changing. Jesus says the kingdom of God is within. Yes? And yet also it's here. It's here. It's here right now. If we look right now in the heart of another, we see the same kingdom. The show continues to change, and yet the I remains. So the world is not as it seems to be. It seems to be one thing, but it is another. I was reading a science article from Scientific American recently. And the headline of the article, it was October of this year, October 6th of this year. And it was written about the Nobel the Nobel physics winners for this year. And there were 3. And they won the prize because they had proven that the world is not locally real. The world is not as it appears to be. Things that are happening to us, they happen to us, but I remain the same. The kingdom of God is inside. What we're sharing is that I, are not what happens to us. We are not what we're experiencing. And the way out of this is to connect with the God center within us. It's to relate to who I really am, not the show that's happening. In other words, when we get wrapped up in the anxiety and the fear and the anger and the hatred that seems very much to be the way of the world, we just contribute to it. But when we connect with ourselves, we connect with the I, we connect with the God center, then we find ourselves away from it, or in the peace within, in the joy within. We are not these shells. Peace pilgrims, your peace pilgrims used to say, when asked, how old are you? She would say, I no longer know. And I no longer care. I'm so happy that I don't have to count any longer. I am not this body. This body is the clay shell. I am that which animates the body. And so, this is so for all of us. Our soul. As long as we continue trying to fix what's outside of us, but not relate to what's inside of us, we continue to suffer, we continue to be lost. What the need is to connect with what is inside of us, what is at the center of us, and be able to bring that out. When we connect with the world and the situation in the world, it doesn't get better, does it? It gets worse. When we connect with the peace at the center of us, what happens is we experience the higher state, and we bring it into the world as well. There's in the Sanskrit teachings, Adi Shankaracharya, he says of this world, he says, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Nitya, Jivo Brahmeva Naparaka, meaning Brahman, the absolute God, is real. The world is an appearance, it's drama, it's constantly changing, it's always on the move. You don't know what's going to happen one day to the next. But God is always here, yes? And I, the individual I and God, are not separate, not different. The challenge for us is that as we try to separate and fix, we separate from the essence, we separate from God. But as we allow and come within, we unite with the divine. And this is the need of the day. It's to come back into the breath, it's to come back into the awareness of self. It's to practice being present. This mind only has the capacity to focus on one thing at a time. God. God. What's happening now for many of us is the mind is wrapped up in the things happening around us, what might happen, who might do what. And the mind, as we know, tends to manifest, it tends to create whatever is being contemplated, whatever is being related to. And so the need of the hour is not to try to fix something. The need of the hour is for us to come into God, to come into ourselves, to come into our own highest reality. We don't actually need to worry about the world. We don't need to worry about our family. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't serve, but it means that our worry about it simply makes the situation worse. What we need to be able to do is to relate to the highest. This church, this spiritual center, has come together in order to provide the community an opportunity to relate to the highest. And this is the salvation for us. You know, the Serenity Prayer. Do we know it? Dear Lord, please give me the courage to change what I can change, the patience to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to tell the difference. And the situation that we find ourselves in this crazy time, in this crazy world, is we can't change them. But we can change ourselves. We can change the way that we relate within and without. We can change what we bring into the world. And so this wants to be the practice. It's a particular craziness for us within the mind to continue to be involved in what's happening around and anticipating what might happen. Because I think over the last 2 years we've seen anything can happen. Yeah? In fact, anything can happen and anything will happen. But what's within us is unchanging. And as long as we're focused outside, we miss what's within. As long as we're focused on the changing show, it is what's not changing. And it's what's not changing. It's what is within us that is the salvation place. And so, it is true that the world is in a very difficult situation. It is true that anything can happen. It is true that there is calamity all about. And yet it is also true that we are not these bodies. It is also true that we are not these thoughts. We are not these desires. It is also true that we are essentially one with God, that we are spirit, that we are soul. And it is essentially true that the kingdom is right here, right now. It's not someplace else. And so we face at this precipice a choice. Which way do I go? I can go out more, but if I go out without going in, I just make the matter worse. Or I can come within. And this choice in this time, it seems, is becoming so much more clear. If there's grace from this situation that we're in, this is it. We get to see that when I try to fix things outside, I might make them worse. But that peace within is still here. And so the practice, we say, be here now. Be here with what's here, with what's highest, with what's real, with what's lasting. There are 4 primary practices for this. And what it really means is through our life, relating to the highest, relating to the eternal, relating to God. Christ consciousness is here, it's within. When Jesus said, I and the Father are one, he wasn't just talking about himself. He was talking about the I which is at the center of each of us. So God is right here, right now. To the extent of our ability to practice the presence of God here and now, we bring what we wish into the world. But by trying to fix the world, we don't. And so 4 practices. The first practice, we can say aham brahmasmi, which is the recognition and realization that God and I are one. Now that's not something for the ego to get a hold of. That's a deeper realization that we're one. And it's not necessarily a practice for everyone. What I practice instead of that is, I am thine, all is thine. I am thine, all is thine. And it's a conscious awareness and intentional practice inside. A mantra came to me while I was walking pilgrimage. And it goes like this. Dear Lord, I have no idea why you're doing this, but I know you're doing it. And so please give to me the ability to be patient, to stay the course, to stay with you, to not lose myself. And please show me how to be of service in this time. In other words, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I have no idea. Another pandemic, a world war, I don't know. Do you? We can speculate about it, and the more we speculate about it, perhaps we manifest it. I don't have a clue what will happen. Do you? But I know who is here now. And I know that my real mother, father, is spirit. I know that the spirit has not gone anywhere. That I'm always in this spirit. This Christ consciousness, I'm always in it. It's always here. I know that there's only one good force in the world, and this good force in the world is God. Only one. Everything else shadow. That the one good force is here. And I wish to be permeated by it. I wish to live according to it. I wish to remain in it. And so, thine, O is thine, or aham brahmasmi, I am, you and I are one. If we look at Christ's teachings, we see this is what the text says. Third is to think of God. Good news is you can't think of more than one thing at a time. People talk about multitasking, but actually there's no multitasking. There's just the ability to go from one thought to another very quickly. And when you go from one thought to another very quickly, we call that monkey mind. And it's very uncomfortable, isn't it? It is. So you can go from one thought to another, but you can't think of more than one thing at a time, which means in each moment, our thoughts are either of the divine, or capital S self, or God, Christ consciousness, either that, or they're thoughts of something in the world. Yeah? One or the other. And then we go from moment to moment. The Golden Key. Who here remembers the Golden Key? The name of the author is? Emmett Fox. Thank you. Beautiful. So he speaks of the solver for every problem. Who's read the Golden Key? If I could put it on everyone else's list, I would do it. He says every problem, and this means our worldly problems right now, our family problems right now, every problem, he says it ceases to be a problem when you think of God. And he says one problem solver. And here's the Golden Key. He says, stop thinking about the problem, start thinking about God. Be here now. Be here with what's here. Everything else is the passing show, and the show exists within what we call God. We couldn't be someplace where God is not. We don't understand God's ways. Is that clear? Can we see? We don't understand God's ways. We're on soul journeys here. We can't understand the soul journey. It's not about achieving something in this world that's going to give you lasting happiness, is it? And how long will it last? Moments. And if you say, I'm going to hold on to that happiness rooted in something in the world, won't you just be caught up in fear and anxiety about losing it? Isn't it time to let go of that? And say, I don't need to be concerned about that. I just need to be concerned about my maker. I just need to be concerned about the absolute. I just need to be concerned about what's here. And maybe I can apply this instead of thinking about the problem when we think about God. And what we observe, amazingly, is it's true when we're actually absorbed in the moment, in thoughts of our highest, in thoughts of the absolute, whether we're singing the name, chanting mantra, for those of us that are familiar with mantra practice, speaking of the glory, studying, if we're really concentrated, if the mind is really there, where's the problem? And how many in this room have not experienced miracles in your life? How many have not experienced miracles in your life? Well, any hand go up. This life is full of miracles. My God, the butterfly. Look at a butterfly today. See the miracle. Look in the sky, see the clouds, and see the miracle there. Feel your breath and wonder where it came from. Individuals are not breathing through this body. Only God breathes through this body. These bodies are God's bodies, they're not ours. The miracle is everywhere. Being and non-being, both. This miracle, this absolute here everywhere. Nothing but. These hands, not mine. Who made this? Oh, the skin. Whose skin is that? You know, even the feeling of being separate, what we call the ego sense, it's universal. Even that. So I can't understand the ways of the Lord. I can't get it. Can you? It seems better to play our part in the role. And so, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that. Or, I am thine, all is thine. God, you're the one who's doing here. Let me play my part. Let me do my best. And practice of the serenity prayer. Let me focus on what I can change. And let me leave you to the rest, and let me accept whatever it is that you do. I don't need to know why. I just need to be with you. Thinking of God is the third practice we're talking about. Thinking of God. How often? Well, if we know, Peacebuilding used to say, if you knew the power of your thoughts, you would never think a negative thought again. And any thought of a worldly, this needs to be fixed, that's a terrible person. Oh my God, this situation. This is lunacy. Whatever these thoughts are, if only this would have happened to me when I was young, then I would be happy now. No. Happiness is inside. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't go out the room. No. It's right here, right now. If I can bring my awareness back within, if I can be present with what's here now, with what's eternal, with what is omnipresent, with what is omniscient, then I'm fine. And so, prayer. We engage here in not what you would think of as prayer, but just chit-chat. I find myself all the time talking with that. Something happens and I say, oh, and a butterfly arises. Oh, aren't you beautiful in this form? Aren't you amazing in this form? The rain comes. Someone says, oh, terrible weather. I say, whose weather is this? It seems to be perfect weather. I don't understand, but it seems to be. And the fourth practice for us is serve all love all. Serve all love all. This is very high on the list, isn't it? You know, anyone that's suffering here and anyone that says or does something out of alignment is suffering. It's always coming from suffering. The person who pulls the gun out, whoever does whatever, is suffering. And the only suffering really is being apart from God. And so the mental suffering, the mental diseases are not different than cancer, not different than physical disease. So serve all level. Except people that say, bring the presence that's within us into our expression. Paramahansa Yogananda again says the way to God. And honest, if this world is not showing us that what we really want is to be with God, no, then I don't know what it'll take for us to see. And we can't walk out here saying, I have hope it's going to change. Well, yeah, it'll change, and then it'll change again. We'll go through a period where people won't carry guns with them again. And then sooner or later, once again. It's constantly changing, yes? And so to hold out hope, it's going to get better. I know it's going to get better. The next president's going to do it. The next mayor is going to do it. The next this is going to do it. That's our lunacy. Really it is. And we waste our lives with this lunacy. We're here. This is God's world. This isn't our world. Why did you do it this way? I don't know. That seems a little heretical for me to ask that question. Although I used to ask it. But now I'm seeing, we say, well, everything is you. And where there's good, there has to be bad. And where there's right, there has to be wrong. And where there's hot, there has to be cold. And where there's north, there has to be south. This is what this world is, right? Where there's future, there has to be past. And yet, transcending all of it. And this which transcends all of it. This which is here and now. This which has always been here now. This which is our Mother and Father. This which is the being, the ground of being, and even the ground of non-being. What was there before the universe is here now and is always. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, there's never been a time you have not been, nor I, nor all of this. We want to be able to lift ourselves back out of the morass and practice this. We're all eternal. And yes, there's meaning to this life. And yes, we want to bring meaning into it. But the meaning only comes from one place. And what's first and foremost is first and foremost. I'll close with this in the words of Tiny Tim from Christmas Carol? The immortal Tiny Tim. God bless us, everyone.